Don't talk like that, I say firmly. You've been through some awful things this week, and it's upset you. It's more than fair enough. I sit back slightly, looking straight into his eyes. You've got to cling into the fact that your family is still alive, Ron, I say steadily. What happened was terrible, but it's done now. You have the chance of seeing your family again. Hold on to that. I would kill for an opportunity like that. I didn't mean for it to sound quite so self-pitying, but it did, somehow. I can't help it, though. I miss my parents so much. Ron nods, his tears drying up. I know, Hermione, I'm so sorry. Don't be, I say quietly, squeezing his hand. But remember that things could have been so much worse. Ginny could have been killed. But she wasn't. You must cling on to that, because that's the only thing that really matters. He smiles shakily. I scoot up next to him, resting my head on his shoulder as he puts his arm around me. The warmth of him comforts me like nothing else on earth. I know this is how things should be. Me and Ron. But things can't be this way anymore, can they? Not now that Lucius has torn through our relationship, leaving nothing but wreckage in his path. But for now, it doesn't matter. I wind my hand into Ron's and he clings back onto mine. We don't speak that much. When we do speak, we don't talk about anything in particular. But none of that matters. I know that I've held Ron up, and I've helped him pull himself back together again. And he can do the same for me. When I need him to. I can cling on to him. He's the only good thing I have left in my world now. I pace around my own room, walking slowly in the widest of circles I can manage in such an enclosed space. I look down at my feet as I walk, trying to get them in the most direct line possible, one foot directly in front of the other, over and over again. I've got to do something to keep myself from tearing my own hair out from sheer boredom. It's been hours since Avery brought me back here, when he eventually returned. He seemed to be quite pleased with the work I'd done with Ron. Well, I'm guessing he was anyways, or why else would he have brought me back here? I don't know. With Avery, my guess is that he'll look the same if you told him the world was ending, and if you gave him 1,000,000 galleons. His expression never alters. I haven't had anything else to do since I was brought back here. All I've done is pace around my room in circles, occasionally running through some of my old school books in my head. What I can remember of them, anyways. The door clicks and then swings open sharply. I freeze where I am as Lucius enters my bedroom, closing the door quickly behind him. There's no expression in his face at all. What is he here for? He can't be for that. He never comes here until much later, after he's put all the candles out for me to go to bed. But then, it might be quite late anyways. I don't know. It must have been a few hours since I had dinner, so perhaps it is quite late. But if he's here for that, then why is there still in the light? Why is he here in the light? I try to breathe calmly despite the fact that he's not coming any closer. He's just standing there, looking at me with a completely closed expression. He's guarding his emotions for some reason, but I don't know why. But why, I do not know. There we go, sorry. I gather you went to see Weasley today, he says, his voice more than a murmur, a little more than a murmur. Quiet, careful, guarded. I answer carefully, but I don't say anything but the truth. Avery said that Ron has been depressed ever since what happened with Jenny. He needed someone to bring him out of it. He curls up a tiny sneer. And I suppose you're the only person in the world who can do that, are you? He says, hard irritation creeping into his voice. I just look at him. Well, Who else would you suggest? Bellatrix, maybe? I'm sure she's gonna be a great little comfort to a boy who thinks he's lost everything. His mouth twists into what might be a tiny smirk just for a second before a frown clouds his brow. Avery took you to Weasley's room? He asks. I lower my eyebrows. That's what I said. He tuts in irritation, shaking his head. You should have asked my permission to take you, is all he says. I feel a twist of anger deep in my gut. He still thinks he owns me, the bastard. Well, he does, doesn't he? I'm not a possession of yours that people need permission to borrow. I say, my voice hard. He just looks at me, his face cold, but not unfeeling. It's just stiff. It's an expression I know well. It's one he wears when he's trying to keep control. What exactly is there between you and Weasley? He asks. There's no real expression in his voice, only quiet stillness. I just stare at him. Whatever I was expecting him to say, it certainly wasn't that. What does that mean? I ask sharply. He takes a deep breath through his nose, looking at me through narrowed eyes. Answer the question, Mudblood. Nothing. I snap back, my temper fraying at the edges. There isn't anything between us, all right? Not anymore. I almost wanted to add thanks to you, but I don't. That would be against the rules. That would be hinting at some kind of emotional connection with him, which is, I know, is just not allowed. I'm just not allowed to. Doesn't seem like nothing, he says quietly. I've seen the pair of you together frequently. I know there's definitely something between you. Something deep inside me shatters. What right does he have to ask? What right does he have to talk to me like this? What right does he have when everything between me and Ron used to be so simple before he came and complicated everything? Complicated our relationship, complicated me. Well, if you want to go down that route, I say shakily, why don't you tell me what used to be going on between you and Bellatrix? Why don't you tell me what there is between you and your wife? The word wife seems to throw him, and just for a second, I can see his eyes flash in temper. She's forbidden territory for me, I know. But I want to know about her. She's just this remote figure to me, like a beautiful sculpture I've only seen pictures of. I'm sleeping with her husband, betraying her in one of the worst ways possible. And I don't even know her. But that doesn't stop every pore of my body oozing shame whenever I think about her. It makes me feel even dirtier and about 100 times worse when I have to force myself to remember that he's married along with everything else. My wife is not your concern, he says. But she is, Lucius, I hiss. You made her my concern, didn't you? His lips thin out, a muscle going in his cheek. I know I'm pushing this too far. Now you listen to me, he says quietly, and you listen well. I will not discuss my wife with you. It is highly probable you will never meet her again, so she does not concern you. I just stare at him, his words freezing me to the very bone. Don't you care? I ask, my words wavering. Don't you care that you're betraying her? Her husband's sleeping with a mudblood, after all. Do you really think that she would find that palatable? He snaps then. He reaches up and grips me by the hair, wrenching my head back so that my neck is exposed, and he's standing over me, whispering down into my face as I wince with the pain. No doubt she would find it most unpalatable, he whispers. That is why it is fortunate she will never know the truth. Do you understand what I'm saying? And because I can't do anything else, I nod. For a few seconds I can feel his breath fluttering on my neck as he holds me still. But then he releases me, stepping back from me once again. I stare at him, rubbing my now sore and aching neck. Do you love her? I ask quietly. Is that why you don't want her to find out? He rolls his eyes. I swallow hard, feeling an unpleasant kick deep down in my stomach. If you don't love her, then why don't you want her to find out about us? He sneers at me. Sometimes I wonder just how simple you can be, he says icily. Do you not realize that if anyone ever finds out about this, then the pair of us will be condemned in a heartbeat? I swallow. We are skating on the thinnest of ice, I know it. If Voldemort ever finds out what's going on. And what's more, I have a deep respect for Narcissa, he says. He raises his eyebrow at my expression. What? You assume that because you don't love someone you cannot respect them? Narcissa is an intelligent, graceful, and beautiful woman. She does not deserve to be disgraced with the knowledge that her husband... He trails off, unable to even say it, apparently. It's so abhorrent to him. You were sleeping with Bellatrix. You didn't seem to care this much as to... You didn't seem to care this much, yeah, there we go. As to whether your wife knew about it or not, I say quietly. Why is that, Lucius? Why would it bring more shame to her for her husband to be sleeping with a mudblood than for her to be sleeping with... than for him to be sleeping with her sister? He looks at me for a long moment before he shakes his head, a bitter smirk twisting around his lips. You still don't understand, do you? He says. You don't understand what an abomination you really are. I feel cold. It's you that comes to my bed every night, I mutter. Or have you forgotten that fact? If I'm disgusting to you, then you must be even more disgusted with yourself. A muscle goes in his jaw, and his eyes narrow with rage. I can't stop myself. Is that why you come here in the dark, is it? That's why you come here in the dark, isn't it? I whisper. Because you don't want to face up to what you're doing? The back of his hand whips across my face in a slap, and it hurts. It hurts so much. But as I fall to the ground, I know that that slap confirmed what I just said. I look up at him, clutching my cheek, and I see the usual rage and disgust there. I know now that not all of what just directed... Fudge me! And I know now that not all of that is just directed at me anymore. He must truly hate himself for what he's doing, after all. He probably feels that sleeping with a mudblood is practically the same as being a mudblood himself. He tangles his hand in my hair and wrenches me up to my feet, dragging me across the room and pinning me to the wall. He looks at me for a long moment, and I can see the familiar dark light in his eyes. His breathing is quickened slightly as he presses my body into the wall. I have never been afraid of anything, he whispers. I am no coward. But you are, Lucius, I mutter, pressing my body up to his ever so slightly. You are afraid now. What's going on between us terrifies you. You need the darkness to hide away what you're doing. His lip curls up in rage. Is that so? He crushes his lips onto mine here, now, in the full glare of the candlelight lights that line my walls. His hands slide quickly under my robes, and I kiss him back, wrapping my arms around his neck as he pulls my clothes off my body, and I hate myself for it. And I know that he does too, but if we can't have love, then hatred will have to do.